My sister secretly put my name on her baby's birth certificate so her child would have a reliable father, but when I found out, I took her to court and erased myself from their lives. My name is Brandon Hayes. I'm 35, a high school history teacher in Raleigh, North Carolina, and until all of this happened, my life was so uneventful it barely felt worth describing. If there was chaos anywhere in my life, it didn't live with me. It lived 20 minutes away in my parents' house in Cary, specifically in my younger sister Kayla's old bedroom. Kayla is 30 and has always moved through the world like consequences are optional. She'd land a job, quit 2 months later because of toxic coworkers, start dating someone intensely, then call me crying at midnight about how he was controlling or cheating or both. Our parents never stopped cushioning her falls. Mom would say Kayla just had a sensitive heart. Dad would grumble but still hand over cash, just this once. Meanwhile I became the dependable one by default. 2 years ago, Kayla announced she was pregnant. There was no big reveal, no happy dinner, no ultrasound pictures passed around the table. She just showed up at my place one evening looking pale and jittery and said, "I'm having a baby," like she was confessing to a parking ticket. I remember setting down the stack of quizzes I'd been grading and asking the obvious question. "Are you okay?" She shrugged. "I'll figure it out." I asked about the father. She waved a hand like swatting a fly. "Doesn't matter. He's not involved." That was that. No name, no story, no outrage, no heartbreak. Just a closed door. I offered to help her look into legal options, child support, anything practical. She shut that down too. Said she didn't want drama, didn't want courts, didn't want to chase someone who clearly didn't want to be found. It sounded like Kayla, impulsive decisions followed by stubborn refusal to deal with the fallout. What didn't sound like Kayla was how secretive she became after that. Pregnancy usually makes people overshare. Ultrasounds, cravings, nursery photos, endless updates. Kayla did the opposite. If Mom asked about doctor appointments, she snapped. If Dad suggested a baby shower, she said she didn't want one. She never mentioned which hospital she'd use, never talked about due dates beyond vague, sometime in spring, comments. At first we assumed she was embarrassed. Single pregnancy, no partner, living back at home, small-town shame still lingers even in suburbs. So we gave her space. Then the baby was born, and things got stranger. Mom texted me early one morning, "She's here. 7 pounds 2 ounces. Both okay." A few minutes later Kayla sent a single photo to the family group chat. A tiny red-faced newborn wrapped in a hospital blanket, eyes squeezed shut, mouth open mid-cry. No hospital name. No room number. No, "come visit." Just the picture. Mom immediately asked when she could come see the baby. Kayla replied, "Not yet. Doctor says limit visitors." This was during that weird stretch when hospitals still had lingering restrictions, so it didn't sound completely unreasonable. Except the "not yet" turned into weeks. Every time Mom brought it up, Kayla had a new reason: baby's immune system, sleep schedule, pediatrician advice, exhaustion. I didn't push. New mothers get overwhelmed. Kayla especially. I finally met my niece when she was almost 3 months old. Kayla showed up unannounced at my duplex one Saturday afternoon, baby carrier in one hand, diaper bag in the other, looking like she hadn't slept in a year. The baby, Ava, blinked up at me with these huge gray-blue eyes, strangely calm for an infant. I remember thinking she looked familiar somehow. Not in any concrete way. Babies are just blobs with expressions. But there was something about the eyes, the shape of them maybe, that tugged at my brain like I was supposed to recognize it. "You gonna hold her or just stare?" Kayla asked. I took Ava carefully, terrified of doing something wrong. She was warm, heavier than I expected, and she smelled like baby powder and formula. She stared straight at me the entire time, unblinking, serious in a way that felt oddly adult. "See?" Kayla said. "She likes you." I made some awkward comment about how she had strong neck control already, because I didn't know what else to say. Kayla laughed, a real laugh, not the brittle one she'd been using lately, and for a moment she looked like the sister I grew up with. Then she took Ava back, packed up, and left as suddenly as she'd arrived. Visits stayed rare after that. Quick drop-ins, short stays, never overnight, never long enough for routines to form. It felt less like being an uncle and more like being a distant relative who happened to live nearby. About a year passed. Ava turned into a sturdy toddler with soft blonde hair and a cautious personality. Kayla seemed more stressed than ever. She complained about daycare costs, formula prices, rent she couldn't afford if she moved out, exhaustion, loneliness, all the things single parents deal with. I helped where I could. Groceries sometimes. Toys for birthdays. Fixing things around the house. Then the request started getting bigger. Not, can you pick up diapers, but, can you lend me $2,000? Big, urgent amounts with vague explanations, deposits, medical bills, car repairs. The first time I said I couldn't. Teachers don't exactly swim in spare cash, and I had my own bills. She didn't take it well. You make good money, she said sharply. You don't even have kids. I told her I was willing to help with specific things, not hand over thousands with no plan. That's when her tone shifted from desperate to accusatory. Must be nice not to understand real responsibility. That stung more than it should have. I'd spent my whole life being responsible, just not in the dramatic way she meant. We argued. Voices raised, old resentments resurfacing. She left furious, slamming my door hard enough to rattle the windows. We didn't speak for weeks after that. Honestly, part of me was relieved. The quiet felt like oxygen after being underwater. Then one Tuesday afternoon, I came home from school, dumped my bag on the kitchen counter, and sorted through the mail the way I always did: junk, bills, junk, coupons, junk. One envelope stood out. Thick, official-looking, law firm letterhead across the top. My first thought was that it was some kind of class action notice or mistake. Maybe someone with the same name. I almost tossed it aside to open later. Something made me tear it open right there. I read the first paragraph once. Then again. Then a third time, slower, because my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Notice of pending child support proceedings. My name. A child's name I recognized. Ava. My niece. For a few seconds I genuinely wondered if I was having some kind of stroke. The words looked real but made no sense together. I checked the address, the spelling, everything. All correct. My hand started shaking so badly the paper rattled. There had to be a mistake. Some clerical error. Identity theft. Anything but what it actually said. Because according to that letter, I wasn't just Ava's uncle. I was her legal father. And I had been for over a year. I called the number on the letter 3 times before I actually let it ring through, because some part of me was still convinced that once a real person answered, they'd tell me it was a mistake. A woman with a calm, practiced voice picked up. Good afternoon, Whitaker and Bell Family Law. My throat felt dry. Hi. I received a notice about child support proceedings. I think there's been some kind of mix-up. She asked for my name, date of birth, reference number. I gave them automatically, like reciting answers on a test I hadn't studied for. There was a pause. Keyboard clicking. No, Mr. Hayes, she said gently. This case was filed by Ms. Kayla Hayes regarding a minor child, Ava Hayes. You are listed as the legal father. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, it was the kind of laugh your body makes when panic has nowhere else to go. That's impossible, I said. I'm her uncle. Another pause. Longer this time. Sir, according to the birth certificate on file, you are recorded as the father. The room felt suddenly too small. Like the walls had leaned inward without me noticing. That's wrong, I said. There's no way. I never signed anything. She spoke slowly, carefully, like someone handling something fragile. If you believe paternity was assigned in error, you will need to petition the court for disestablishment. You may wish to consult an attorney. Petition. Disestablishment. Words that sounded clinical and distant, but underneath them was something terrifyingly simple: fix this yourself. I hung up without saying goodbye and just stood there in my kitchen, staring at nothing. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside a dog barked. Normal life noises that felt completely disconnected from the fact that, apparently, my identity had been used to create a child I was now legally responsible for. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I just know I ended up in my car, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. The drive to my parents' house in Cary should have taken 20 minutes. I don't remember most of it. Traffic lights, turns, entire stretches of road, gone. My brain was too busy replaying one sentence over and over. You are listed as the legal father. When I pulled into their driveway, Kayla's car was there. So was my dad's truck. Curtains drawn, porch light off even though it was late afternoon. The house looked normal, which somehow made it worse. How could something this insane exist inside something so ordinary? I sat in the car for a full minute, breathing fast, trying to steady myself. Then I walked in without knocking. Mom was in the kitchen. The moment she saw my face, her expression collapsed like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Oh, Brandon, she said softly, already tearing up. My stomach dropped. Where's Kayla? She didn't answer. She just glanced toward the stairs. Footsteps thudded overhead. Then Kayla appeared, coming down slowly, Ava balanced on her hip like always. The baby, not really a baby anymore, more of a toddler, was clutching a stuffed rabbit, thumb in her mouth, eyes sleepy. Kayla looked, not surprised. Not confused. Not alarmed. Just tired. "What?" she said. I held up the letter. My voice came out flatter than I felt. "Why does this say I'm Ava's father?" She didn't even pretend not to understand. She just closed her eyes for a second and exhaled. "I didn't think you'd find out like this." That sentence landed like a physical blow. "Find out what, Kayla?" Dad came in from the living room, jaw tight, arms folded across his chest. He looked angry, not at her, but at the situation, like he wanted it to disappear through sheer force of irritation. Kayla adjusted Ava on her hip and spoke in this quiet, almost reasonable tone, like we were discussing car insurance. "When I went into labor, they asked who the father was. I waited. And you said." She met my eyes. "I put your name." The world didn't explode. No dramatic music, no shouting, no lightning strike. Just a heavy silence that felt thicker than air. "You what?" "I needed someone stable," she said quickly. "Someone reliable. Someone who wouldn't disappear." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. The apology. The "just kidding." None came. "You put my name on your child's birth certificate," I said slowly, "without telling me." "I didn't think it would matter this much," she said, defensive now. "It's not like you had to do anything." I actually felt dizzy. "Not do anything?" "Kayla, I just got a letter saying I owe child support." She flinched, like that part hadn't occurred to her. "Well, yeah, but it's for Ava." Like that explained everything. Mom started crying openly now, hands fluttering uselessly like she wanted to fix something she couldn't touch. "Sweetheart, she was scared," Mom said. "She was alone, in pain, no one there. That doesn't give her the right to make me a father." Kayla's jaw tightened. "You're not a real father. It's just paperwork." Paperwork. Like she'd forged my signature on a permission slip, not tied my life to a human being for 18 years. "How did you even? I never gave you my information." She hesitated, then said, "I remembered it. Apparently, years earlier I'd helped her fill out an apartment application when she didn't understand the forms. My social security number, full legal name, birth date, all of it had been sitting in her memory, waiting to be used." "The hospital didn't question it?" I asked. "They just wrote down what I said. Lots of fathers aren't there when the baby's born." "Of course. Why would they suspect anything? A woman in labor says the father's name, they record it. No conspiracy. No hacking. Just confidence." "Why me?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because you're safe," she said immediately. "You have a steady job. Insurance. No criminal record. You don't disappear. Safe. Reliable. Predictable. All the things that made me boring had apparently also made me useful. If I put the real guy, there'd be nothing," she continued. "No support, no benefits, no stability. With you, Ava would always be taken care of." I felt something hot and sharp bloom in my chest. "You could have asked." Her eyes flicked away. "You would have said no." "Yes. I would have. That was the point." Dad cleared his throat. She wasn't thinking clearly. She'd just given birth. "It's been over a year," I said. "Plenty of time to tell me." Kayla's voice hardened. "And risk you freaking out exactly like this? No thanks." There it was. Not desperation. Not confusion. Calculation. "So the plan was, what? Hope I never noticed." She shrugged, shifting Ava to her other hip. "You were already helping. I figured you'd keep helping." "Helping. Buying groceries. Birthday gifts. Fixing the leaky faucet. Not signing up for nearly 2 decades of legal obligation." "I need you to fix this," I said. Her face went pale. "I can't. Kayla. If I change it, they'll ask questions. I could get in serious trouble. They could say I committed fraud. They could take Ava." Mom made a distressed sound. "Don't say that." "So your solution," I said carefully, "is for me to just accept this?" She looked me dead in the eye. "It's not like you're losing anything." I almost laughed again, but this time there was nothing hysterical about it. Just disbelief so deep it felt hollow. 18 years of child support isn't nothing. "It's for your niece," she snapped. "Don't you care about her?" And that was the moment something inside me shifted. Not an explosion, more like a door quietly closing. Because she wasn't apologizing. She wasn't scared of hurting me. She was scared of consequences for herself. I looked at Ava, still sucking her thumb, oblivious to the storm swirling around her. She didn't ask for any of this. She didn't choose her mother's decisions. She just existed, warm and small and innocent in the middle of adult selfishness. I do care about her, I said softly. Kayla's shoulders relaxed, like she thought she'd won. That's why you'll help, she said. I shook my head. No. That's why I won't let this continue. Dad's expression darkened. Brandon, don't make this a legal thing. Families handle things privately. This is already legal, I said, holding up the letter. I didn't make it that way. Mom stepped forward, grabbing my arm. Please don't fight her. Court battles are awful for children. I gently pulled away. I didn't start this fight. Kayla's voice dropped, cold and sharp. If you do this, you'll destroy us. Maybe she meant financially. Maybe she meant emotionally. Maybe she meant the fragile illusion our family had been maintaining for years. But standing there, I realized something else. She had already destroyed something. Trust. Safety. The idea that my own family wouldn't quietly rewrite my life without permission. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm fixing what you broke. Ava started fussing, sensing the tension. Kayla bounced her automatically, whispering soothing nonsense while glaring at me like I was the villain. I walked out before I could say something I'd regret. Back in my car, my hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was anger. Because for the first time, I understood that if I didn't fight this, no one else would. And if I didn't fight it now, I might never get my life back. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw different versions of the future unfolding, paychecks drained by support payments, legal forms tying my name to a child who would grow up believing I chose not to be there, Kayla continuing her life like nothing had happened while mine quietly narrowed into obligation. By 3 in the morning I was sitting on my couch in the dark, laptop open, reading everything I could find about paternity law. Most of it was terrifying. Terms like presumed father, legal fatherhood, financial liability. Case after case where men were forced to pay support for children proven not to be biologically theirs because paperwork had been signed or deadlines had passed. I kept thinking, I never signed anything. But apparently, that didn't always matter. At 8:01 a.m., I called the first family law office that had decent reviews and an available appointment. That's how I ended up sitting across from Patrick Sloan 2 days later in a quiet office suite in North Raleigh, clutching a folder of documents like it was a life preserver. He was in his early 50s, gray at the temples, calm in the way people get when they've seen every possible disaster already. Tell me what happened, he said. I told him everything. The pregnancy, the secrecy, the letter, the confrontation. Saying it out loud made it sound even more absurd, like I was describing a plot twist from a bad TV drama. He didn't laugh. He didn't look shocked. He just took notes. When I finished, he leaned back slightly. Okay, he said. First, take a breath. Situations like this can be resolved. Some of the tension in my chest loosened. Because I never consented, right? He hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but enough to notice. In principle, yes. But legally, it's not automatic. The court recognizes whoever is listed as the father on the birth certificate until that status is challenged and overturned. So I have to prove I'm not the father. Correct. How? DNA testing, primarily. That part at least sounded straightforward. And until then? He met my eyes. You are legally responsible. The words hit harder in that quiet office than they had over the phone. Responsible. For a child I didn't create. Didn't adopt. Didn't even know had been tied to me. Patrick explained the process, filing a petition to disestablish paternity, requesting a court-ordered DNA test, preparing for a hearing. He spoke calmly, professionally, like this was just another case file among hundreds. To him, it probably was. To me, it felt like my entire identity was being audited. Will she get in trouble? I asked. For putting my name down. He chose his words carefully. Possibly. But courts often prioritize the child's stability over punishing the parent, especially if no malicious intent can be proven. Malicious intent. As if rewriting someone's life without consent could be considered anything else. We signed paperwork. Lots of paperwork. By the time I left, the process had officially begun. I thought that would make me feel better. Instead, it made everything real. Kayla found out within days. I don't know if she got served papers at the house or if Mom told her first, but my phone started blowing up one evening while I was grading essays at my dining table. Kayla. Mom. Dad. Kayla again. I ignored them until the calls turned into texts. How could you do this? Call me now. You're going to ruin everything. Finally, one message from Mom. She's hysterical. Please just talk to her. Against my better judgment, I called. Kayla answered on the first ring, already crying. You went to a lawyer? She demanded. Yes. How could you do that to me? I almost laughed at the phrasing. To you? You're trying to take Ava away. I'm trying to remove my name from a document I never agreed to. You don't understand how serious this is, she said, voice shaking. If the court thinks I lied, they could charge me. They could take her. Then you should have thought about that before you lied. Silence. Then a low, angry inhale. You're selfish, she said. All you care about is yourself. I looked around my quiet duplex, the papers spread across the table, the untouched dinner on the counter, the life I'd built carefully over years. Yes. I cared about that life. I care about not being forced into fatherhood without consent, I said. You're already her father on paper. Exactly. That's the problem. Mom got on the phone next. Her voice was thick with tears. Sweetheart, please reconsider. Court battles are so traumatic for children. Mom, Ava is 1 year old. She doesn't even know what court is. But the stress affects everyone. What she meant was, it affects Kayla. Dad's turn. His voice was tight, controlled. Family doesn't sue family, Brandon. I didn't sue anyone. I filed to correct a legal document. You're tearing this family apart. No, I thought. The lie did that. I'm just refusing to pretend it's okay. But saying that would only escalate things, so I ended the call with a vague promise to think about it, even though my decision had already been made. After that, the pressure spread outward like ripples. Aunts texting me about forgiveness. Cousins posting vague quotes about loyalty on social media. Family friends suddenly reaching out to check in. Apparently Kayla had told everyone I was trying to abandon my own child. Not niece. Child. The narrative had shifted completely. At school, I functioned on autopilot. Lectures delivered, assignments collected, grades entered, all while my brain buzzed with anxiety. What if the court sided with her? What if some technicality trapped me anyway? What if this dragged on for years? The DNA test appointment came faster than I expected. It was scheduled at a small medical office in Raleigh, sterile waiting room, beige walls, outdated magazines fanned across a low table. Kayla was already there when I arrived, sitting stiffly with Ava on her lap. She wouldn't look at me. Ava, on the other hand, beamed when she saw me and reached out her arms. That nearly broke me. I picked her up automatically. She smelled like baby shampoo and crackers, warm and trusting, completely unaware that her existence had detonated my life. Hey, kiddo, I murmured. Kayla watched us with red-rimmed eyes, expression unreadable. You didn't have to do this, she said quietly. Yes, I did. The technician called us back. Eric Dalton, according to his badge. Neutral tone, efficient movements, clearly someone who had witnessed countless awkward situations and learned not to react. Swabs inside the cheek. Quick, painless, clinical. Done. As we walked back toward the waiting room, Kayla stopped me. If this goes through, she said, voice barely above a whisper, everything changes. It already has. She swallowed hard. I thought you'd protect us. There it was again, the assumption that my role was to absorb the damage so she wouldn't have to. I didn't respond. I just handed Ava back and left. The results came 2 weeks later. Patrick called personally. It's conclusive, he said. You are not the biological father. Relief flooded through me so suddenly I had to sit down. Not surprise. I'd never believed otherwise. But hearing it confirmed felt like oxygen after being suffocated. What happens now? I asked. We present this at the hearing. Given the circumstances, the court will almost certainly grant disestablishment. Almost certainly. Not definitely. The hearing date was set for the following month. Until then, life existed in this strange suspended state. Technically a father. Practically not. Emotionally exhausted either way. Kayla stopped contacting me directly. Everything came through Mom, updates about how stressed she was, how little she was sleeping, how expensive lawyers were, how unfair everything felt. No mention of what she'd done to me. The morning of the hearing, I woke before my alarm, stomach knotted, mouth dry. I dressed carefully, suit, tie, the whole formal armor, and drove downtown through gray, overcast skies that matched the heaviness in my chest. The Wake County Courthouse loomed ahead, all concrete and glass, impersonal and unyielding. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paper. People sat on hard benches clutching folders, whispering urgently, avoiding eye contact. Everyone there had a story. Most of them painful. Kayla was already seated outside the courtroom with our parents. Mom looked like she'd been crying all night. Dad stared straight ahead, jaw set. Kayla clutched Ava's diaper bag even though the child wasn't with her. Mom was watching her at home. None of them spoke to me. Patrick arrived a few minutes later, calm as ever, reviewing documents one last time. "You'll be fine," he said quietly. "Just answer questions honestly." Easy for him to say. When our case was called, we filed into the courtroom, Kayla on one side, me on the other, like strangers instead of siblings who grew up sharing cereal bowls and Christmas mornings. Judge Miriam Wallace presided from the bench, expression neutral but sharp, the kind of person who clearly had no patience for nonsense. As the proceedings began, I realized this wasn't just paperwork anymore. This was the moment where my life either returned to me or slipped away permanently. Family court doesn't look like it does on TV. No dramatic music. No shouting lawyers pacing back and forth. Just fluorescent lights, wood paneling, and a quiet tension that feels heavier than noise ever could. Judge Wallace reviewed the file in silence for what felt like an eternity. Papers shifted, pages turned, the faint scratch of a pen. Every small sound seemed amplified in the still room. I kept my hands folded in front of me so no one could see them shaking. Kayla stood at the opposite table, shoulders hunched, eyes red, twisting a tissue to pieces. For a split second I almost felt sorry for her. She looked small. Fragile. Like a kid who'd gotten caught doing something she never imagined would have consequences. Then I remembered the letter. The months of lies. The assumption that my life was hers to assign. Sympathy drained away. Patrick spoke first, laying out the facts calmly, that I had been listed as the father without my knowledge or consent, that no acknowledgement of paternity had been signed, that DNA testing conclusively excluded me as the biological parent. Simple. Clinical. Devastating. Kayla's attorney, court-appointed, from what I understood, leaned heavily on emotional arguments. She described Kayla as a frightened young mother who made a mistake under extreme stress, who believed she was acting in her child's best interest, who never intended harm. Never intended harm. I wondered if anyone had asked whether harm still happened anyway. Then Kayla was sworn in. Her voice trembled as she spoke. She said she had been alone during labor, terrified, abandoned by the baby's father. She said she panicked when asked for a name. She said she chose me because she trusted me, because she believed I would never hurt her or Ava. She said she thought I would step up eventually. Hearing that out loud was surreal. Like my entire personality had been used as evidence against me. Her attorney asked if she intended to deceive the court. "No," she sobbed. "I just wanted my daughter to have stability." The judge's expression didn't change. When it was my turn, I stood, legs stiff, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Patrick asked simple questions. Did I consent to being listed as the father? No. Did I sign any documents acknowledging paternity? No. Was I present at the birth? No. Did I have a biological relationship to the child? No. Each answer felt like a brick laid between my life and the one Kayla had tried to build around me. The judge asked a few questions directly. "Mr. Hayes, when did you first become aware that you were listed as the father?" "When I received a notice of child support proceedings." "And prior to that, you had no knowledge?" "None." She nodded, making a note. Then she looked at Kayla. "Ms. Hayes, why did you not inform your brother at any point during the past year?" Kayla's voice dropped to a whisper. "I was afraid he'd say no." A long pause filled the room. Judge Wallace set down her pen. "Fear of refusal does not justify misrepresentation on a legal document," she said evenly. Kayla started crying again. The ruling itself took less than 2 minutes. Based on the DNA evidence and lack of consent, my legal status as Ava's father was vacated. My name would be removed from the birth certificate. The child support case was dismissed effective immediately. Just like that. A year of false fatherhood erased in a handful of sentences. There was brief discussion about potential penalties for providing false information. Kayla's attorney emphasized her emotional state, lack of prior offenses, and cooperation with the process. In the end, the judge issued a formal warning and required legal counseling but declined to pursue criminal charges. Part of me thought that was unfair. Another part, the part that remembered Ava's tiny hands reaching for me, was relieved. The gavel tapped softly. Case closed. Outside the courtroom, the hallway felt suddenly too bright, too loud. People moved around us, other cases continuing, other lives unraveling and reassembling. Mom rushed to Kayla immediately, wrapping her in a tight embrace. Dad hovered beside them, face dark, eyes avoiding mine. No one congratulated me. No one said I was sorry. Patrick shook my hand. You did the right thing. It didn't feel like victory. More like surviving something I never should have had to face. I left without saying goodbye. For the first few weeks afterward, silence settled over everything. No calls. No texts. No accidental run-ins. It was like I'd stepped sideways out of my own family's orbit. Eventually communication resumed, but differently. Filtered. Formal. Mom would send updates about holidays or birthdays. Dad would ask practical questions about things around the house. Kayla never contacted me directly. I still sent gifts for Ava. Small things, books, clothes, toys. Not as a father, not even really as an uncle in the traditional sense. Just, because none of this was her fault. I didn't visit. I told myself it was to avoid confusion for her. The truth was simpler, I didn't trust the situation not to pull me back in. Without my name attached, reality hit Kayla hard. Daycare costs. Rent. Medical bills. All the things she'd hoped stability on paper would solve. Eventually she filed for paternity testing against the actual father, Tyler Briggs, a name I'd only heard in passing. From what Mom told me, he denied everything, dodged paperwork, changed jobs frequently. The process dragged on for months. Financial strain followed. Stress. Exhaustion. The same thing she tried to protect herself from, just delayed. Mom started hinting that I could still help. You're doing well, she'd say gently. She's really struggling. Dad was less subtle. Family takes care of its own. I never argued. I just didn't change my behavior. Because the truth sat heavy in my chest every time the topic came up. She hadn't asked for help. She had assigned it. Sometimes I look at photos Mom sends, Ava at the park, Ava covered in birthday cake, Ava clutching stuffed animals, and I feel this strange mix of affection and distance. She's part of me, but not really. A life I brushed against but didn't step into. And sometimes, late at night, the guilt creeps in. Not guilt for fighting the case. That part still feels necessary, like sealing a breach before the whole structure collapses. The guilt is for what came after. Because by removing myself, I didn't just protect my own future. I removed the safety net she'd built around hers. Maybe that's fair. Maybe it isn't. I didn't ruin Kayla's life. I didn't make her lie. I didn't choose the father who walked away. But I did choose not to save her. Now family gatherings are polite, distant affairs when I attend at all. Conversations stay shallow. No one mentions the case directly, but it hangs in the air like a ghost no one wants to acknowledge. Kayla and I coexist, not reconcile. She treats me like a stranger she used to know. I treat her like someone capable of rewriting reality if it benefits her. Trust, once broken that deeply, doesn't regrow. It just leaves empty space. My life, though, my life went back to normal. Teaching. Quiet evenings. Bills paid. Future open again. Peaceful. Sometimes that peace feels earned. Sometimes it feels lonely. Every now and then I catch myself wondering what would have happened if I'd done nothing. If I'd just quietly paid, quietly stayed involved, quietly accepted the role she chose for me. Would Ava be better off? Would my family still feel whole? Or would resentment have poisoned everything anyway, just slower? I don't have answers. Just the knowledge that once a line like that is crossed, there's no version of reality where everyone walks away happy. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I took my life back. But I still don't know if protecting myself meant abandoning someone who never asked to be part of the mess in the first place. And I guess that's what I'm still struggling with. Was I justified in fighting to erase a fatherhood I never agreed to, or did I let an innocent child pay the price for her mother's mistake?